Hey everybody, welcome. Sorry, I'm hitting buttons and hit the record button before I hit the view button. But anyway, um good morning everybody. Welcome to week 4 in our African American Humanities course. We are heading into a new time period this week. And so I want to just kind of quickly review with you what's happening, what you should be working on, all of that good stuff. So let me share and we'll take a look. As I mentioned, we're in week 4, and this module will last from this week to next week. So kind of like the last one, it's a 2-week module. And so we are starting, of course, with our outcomes. We are in the Civil War, Emancipation, and Reconstruction era, which takes us from 1865 up until 1919, essentially. And so that's where our focus is going to be for the next 2 weeks. Similarly to last week, you have the full 2 weeks to do all of the readings and watch all the videos and all of that fun stuff. So there are some longer readings in here as well as some shorter ones. You can divide it up however you want to, but you are going to have some to discuss this week in a reading quiz. So it's going to be just like the last module, where in the first week, at the end of this week, you're going to turn in that reading quiz. You will have the freedom to pick what you want to write about. So you don't have to read everything before you do that quiz. And then you have until the following week, week 5, the end of that, to do your next reading activity and response. Now, of course, some of you have turned it in since I last looked. I had been grading them kind of throughout the week. I do try to keep up with things, and so sometimes I will grade things in advance of the due date if you've already turned it in. It is not a it's not a bad thing to turn it in on the due date. That's absolutely fine. But some of you may already have seen some reactions and some feedback to those from last week. But the ones that I had already seen were looking good. You do want to make sure that you give some specifics from the readings and or videos or whatever. So do include some direct quotations. And even though the citations don't need to be perfect, I do want you to create a works cited. I do want you to cite the sources in the documents, because mostly because it's just good practice. And if you're not doing it for the reading activity responses, then it just makes it a little harder to remember to do it when we come to the formal research papers. So I'm not a huge stickler for that on the reading and activity responses, but if you don't use any documentation, I will usually remind you that you need to. It's just good practice to stay in. So it's a little less pressure, but it's something that you want to make sure that you do. So we have a lot of cool things to choose from this week. In Patton's book, of course, we have some additional, we have an additional chapter. And several of you did write about Patton in your reading and activity responses. I really enjoy that book. I think it's really cool. It gives us a glimpse into some things that we probably don't already know about African American artistic expression, which is kind of cool. I know at least one of you wrote about the architectural information, and I find that kind of stuff really fascinating. I was already, mostly because of Alice Walker and her literature, I was already really familiar with the background of quilting as a major expression of African American humanities. But things like architecture and stuff like that, as a literature person, of course, I don't necessarily automatically think of. So I know I really enjoy that kind of stuff. You do have some famous voices. Washington and Du Bois are some of the most famous voices in the immediate post-Civil War era, and their juxtaposition is something that we're going to continue to see in later expressions of African American thought. So do pay special attention to Washington and Du Bois. Ida B. Wells Barnett is someone that most of us don't grow up hearing about, but she's a very powerful figure in this era. And so you'll be learning about her. We do have some creative writing by Charles Chestnut and James Weldon Johnson. Charles Chestnut's, these are both actual normal short stories in the sense that we tend to think about them. James Weldon Johnson's book, The Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man, says autobiography, but it is in fact a novel. So it is a piece of creative writing as well. And then you've got some information on the music of the era. So please check those out. You can spread it out over the 2 weeks however you want to, but just remember that this week you do have a reading quiz to do. So you'll need to get at least started with it so that you have something to write about for your reading quiz. All right, as usual, I will remind you if you have any questions or problems this week, please don't hesitate to get in touch. I will be available. So I will talk to you next Monday if I do not talk to you before then. All right, everybody take care and have a great week.